So Rose, the Lord's been really speaking a lot about hope being deferred, and I've been really paying attention to that more and more, because sometimes your hope can be deferred and you don't even realize it. I have seen it, just among people that I know. I've also have battled that in my own self, of just things that, you've been believing God for. And then the Lord has showed me, you've kind of stepped out of hope a little bit. But the beautiful thing about the Lord, He begins to draw you back into, believing for that thing again. And I know the Lord has really been stirring that in you for several months now. So kind of share a little bit about some of that.
Well, interesting that you're asking this, because there's been a lot of things that I've been believing for. The Lord has spoken some things, and He's been wanting me to dig in and believe for them. So, I've been kind of seeing that hope deferred in the people as well. So a couple Friday nights ago, I came home from work, and the Lord had brought it up during the day by a friend of mine. She was like, have you seen The Hunger Games? Have you seen that latest movie on The Hunger Games? And I was like, The Hunger Games? No. And she's like, oh my gosh, you've got to see them. And so I was like, okay. So she said, no, you got to start from the beginning. So what I did was I came home and I downloaded that movie out of iTunes, the first Hunger Games, and I'm trucking along watching it, and all of a sudden this guy in the movie says, and he was the bad guy, and he says, he's talking to this other guy, and then he says, the only thing that is greater than fear is hope.
Wow.
When he said that, I was like, oh my gosh. I pushed pause. I was like, whoa, did he just say that? And right then and there, I knew that the Lord was speaking and He was wanting to say something. So then I rewound it, and I had to listen to it again, and I had to think about that for a minute. The next statement that He made in the movie was, a little bit of hope is motivating, but a lot of hope is dangerous. And that's coming from the enemy's perspective. So what do you think about that?
Well, first of all, with that fear, that fear, it really, really paralyzes you. You can only go so far. But with that hope, if it's used for God, there is such great expectancy.
Well, because in the movie, he was talking about how a little bit of hope motivates, is motivating. So to kind of keep them going a little bit. But he was saying that a lot of hope is dangerous to the enemy. And
dangerous to the enemy. Okay, yes. I got you.
And so I was like, wow. So
well, by that being dangerous to the enemy is because there's something about expectation. Because that rides along with faith. Because hope is not what you can see, is what you're expecting God to do. David talked a lot about hope. I believe David himself suffered hope deferred, because he would counteract that and say, my hope is in God. As I'm waiting on you. And I think sometimes as we wait on God, the longer we wait, that's when hope deferred can step in. But I believe that there's a waiting in God that becomes prosperous.
That's good.
When you're waiting on, when it's a God wait, He's working behind the scenes. And faith is in action, and it's not like you can see it, And so there's prosperity in that waiting. And so when you have hope, you don't have to see everything that God's doing. You're just believing.
The definition here, I just happen to have the definition right here of hope. So the definition of hope is a feeling of expectation, just exactly what you said, and a desire for a certain thing to happen. And so, I get all excited when I feel like the Lord's dropped something in my spirit about, hey, Rose, let's do this. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Yeah, this is great. Let's do this. But, as you have to wait and wait and wait on a thing, you can slip into some hope deferred. And then there's another part of the definition, and it says it's a feeling of trust. And so, sometimes when, and I've noticed that I've done this, where sometimes when you are waiting on a thing and you're waiting for it to come to pass, and you feel like you know the Lord spoke it, but you want to get in there and work it.
Yes.
And so it causes you to then get into some anxiety. And so you have to, well, one of the things that I've learned is you have to sit back and rest in it and know that the Lord's going to bring it.
Right.
So, what?
Well, and I think too, when we try to work a thing, we move into performance.
Yeah.
I believe that God is the only one that's supposed to perform, because He performs, in us, His good pleasure.
Yeah.
And when we perform, we work ahead of Him. And then we become weary, and it's that excess yoke. I call it unnecessary warfare, because we have enough warfare, but we don't need any extra when we're trying to work a thing.
Yeah. And then we blame God because we're weary.
Exactly. You said something a minute ago about desire. I think that's very a great component, because that's something that David said. David said, one thing that I desire, and that I would dwell in the house of the Lord. And so to add along with being, with hope, is also passion.
Yeah.
And I think as we're moving into the new year, that's one of the things, and the Lord has been impressed upon me, is praying for passion.
Yeah.
Because we can lack in many things, because we all fall short of the glory. We may struggle in our prayer life. Maybe leading people to Christ. I mean, what are some of the things that you think we as a body or people can struggle, or we would have less enthusiasm for?
Well, when you're working on something that you think that the Lord has spoke, and you've been working on it for a while, and things don't seem to happen, as fast as we want them to happen, yeah, you can lose your enthusiasm, you can lose your hope, you can, the passion starts to dwindle. I mean, that's within any relationship, right? I mean, I used to really be, passionate about some things, and I've noticed how I've, lost that passion, and it's like, Lord, stir that passion back up in me, throw some flame on that, log,
yes,
so that it can well back up in me again, and give me, well, for me, it's really about new ideas, a refreshing, an awakening of a new idea, and a new strategy.
Yes.
So
I think that's really good when you say stir that back in me. And that's something that, I've been doing more and more with some of the things in God that I may not be as enthused about, because sometimes when you're walking with God, you take along assignments, and sometimes those things can be challenging. And so we need enthusiasm as we are walking with God and walking out those assignments. And so sometimes we can pray God to help us try. I believe that God is calling us to pray the will to want to.
That's right.
And so because the Bible says that He works in us the will to do His good pleasure. So I just really see in this new year, God is saying, pray more passion in. If you lack, in your prayer life, if you lack maybe with your family members, start praying that what you said, that fire and that ability, because God gives us the desires of our heart as we delight ourselves in Him. And I believe as we delight ourselves in Him, we take on His desire.
Yeah, for sure. And any good prophet would say, right? Are you a good prophet?
Sometimes.
Any good prophet would say that you need to write down those words that have been spoken over you.
Exactly.
Right? So you need to journal those words. And the beauty of that is when you journal it, and when you go back and read some of that stuff, it starts to stir that back up in you. But if you don't write it down, you lose it. Exactly. You forget about it.
Exactly.
So
you said something key, several weeks ago in the Awake&Breakthru class we were teaching, and you said, it's important that we do write down things, because it honors God. And when we take even when we're hearing the word, when we're going to church or listening, writing that, it honors the seed that's being sown. And God takes a look at that.
Yeah. And He'll bring it back up. Hey, what about this? What about this word right here that I spoke over you?
Yes.
So.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, good. Well, speaking of honoring, I hope you like this.
Wow. Well, guys, we at Awake and Breakthru, Rose and I, Shonda, we would like to wish you guys a very Merry Christmas. And you know what? We always say, Jesus is the reason for the season, but you know what? He's the reason every day.
Yeah, that's right.
He's a gift every day. So we not only celebrate the Lord, we also want to celebrate you.
And to move into this new year with excitement and hope in what he's going to do this new year. So, Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.
Oh, wait a minute. And so, you know how Rose and I get going, right? So she brought these candy canes, and I'm like, really? What are we supposed to do with these? So we'll just say, Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Love you guys.
Bye.